emotional storytelling, right? So what he teaches from the first class, first like couple minutes, is your plot doesn't matter. Map out your emotional arc, the emotional movement of all your characters, and then you can map a plot to that, whatever it needs to be.
Hey guys, welcome to Inside Comics with George Michail. Really quick, if you like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe and tell a friend about it. Today, I'm super psyched. I'm joined by Ben O'Grady. Ben, thanks for being on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, George. I'm a fan of the pod. Very happy to be here with you and chatting about comics and about the anthology.
Yeah. So you are a writer. You're working on an anthology project right now called Tales from the Cloak Room. It's on Kickstarter right now. There's a link in the description of this video. This project came together in an interesting way. You and the other creators on the anthology book are all students in Scott Snyder's class. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the anthology project itself and about the class. And yeah, like first thing, let's get into what is this class like, and what was that about?
Yeah, sure. So Scott's class is it's essentially a comics writing 101 class, right? So it started off on his Substack. It's a premium Substack subscription, so it's $7 a month, $70 a year. So the content that he produces is like live Zoom classes with everybody who signed up for it. So, let's say he has 1,000 students. He's doing a live Zoom where he teaches you about different aspects of creating comics. So, for example, he'll have a class on pitching, characterization, 3-act structure, emotional storytelling. He has a class tonight, actually, and that's on mistakes in making comics, like what not to do in comics. So you can sign up anytime you want. You could go to Substack literally after this podcast and sign up, pay your $7, get into the class. You would get all the old videos that he's produced, and you could do the live class that Scott is actually on, the Zoom, and he'll teach for an hour and a half or so, 2 hours. And sometimes he has like really amazing, like sort of like top level comics creator guests. Like he's had James Tynion, Chip Zdarsky, Donny Cates, Will Dennis, Greg Capullo was in his first class, one of his artists. So class is pretty amazing. So what we did was for the anthology, excuse me, is a bunch of the students in the first couple classes, we started chatting. So they have a Discord, right? Where everybody has access to, that's a student. So we can make a community and like chat with each other about like making comics. And so a bunch of the students sort of self-organized, and we were like, hey, we want to make a comic and we want to put them all together and make an anthology. Like, how do we do that? What do we do? Let's get together and figure it out. So that's what we did. It started off as an email chain, and then we formed our own side Discord for just the writers group, just for the anthology. And we grabbed a couple people that had a little bit of experience with making comics and Kickstarters and anthologies, and we kind of bootstrapped the whole thing, right? So this started like last September. So it's almost been a year-long project. And we just launched on Kickstarter yesterday. So it's been a very long multi-month journey to get the book ready. The book is completely done. All the comics are done, all the art's done and delivered. So what the Kickstarter is for is to do the printing and the shipping. And hopefully if we reach some of our stretch goals, we're actually going to pay the creators back, right? Because everybody fronted the money for their comics, and including myself. So we're going to give back to the creators, and try to get this comic out in the world. And that's what it's all about. So Scott's class has been pretty amazing. I have a little bit of a writing background in like sports writing and making web content. I've done that for many years. Went to graduate school for creative writing. This is the first comics writing class I've ever taken, and it's been like really mind blowing. The stuff that he's teaching, like this is what to do if you're a comic creator and you want to break in like at the top level. Like this is how you do it. And I'm just like, wow, this is like great stuff. So for me, it's been really eye-opening. And you can sign up anytime you want. You can take his class tonight. He's got a couple classes left, but you get access to like all the old resources and all the old videos that they've recorded. So yeah, it's been a fantastic project so far.
That's amazing. The comic book industry and just like the people in it are like so cool that like this is like one of the few businesses where it's like creators will help you. You know what I mean? Like if you're new and you're like trying to figure things out, people will help.
Yeah.
Like for me, when I was getting started, Jim Zub has like a website, and it's just like tons of information on there. And
Right.
like he doesn't need to have all that. Like guy's writing Avengers now. Like he doesn't need to keep that up, but he does. And you talk to anybody at like a convention, and they're like usually they're happy to like kind of share some knowledge with you. And this class that Scott is putting on, I thought it was going to be like, thousands of dollars that you guys had ponied up to be part of it. And it sounds very reasonable in cost.
$7 a month. Yeah. I've personally been beyond impressed at how generous Scott and his collaborators are with sharing information and just taking time out of their day, making, their best-selling comics for whoever, DC, Image, Comixology, and, taking the time once a month to teach the class, to provide resources, to do live Q&As, incredibly generous. Like in the middle of Scott's class, he did the deal for Comixology where he has 8 books going on. So I'm sure he was writing the scripts for those. And he also was running the Witches writer's room because they're pitching Witches as a TV show. So just imagine like how busy he is as a creator, one of the top creators in the industry. And he's teaching a class to people who've never written comics before. It's like crazy.
So what were some of the like writerly takeaways that you did get from this class?
Yeah, so there's a couple that have been really like mind-blowing for me, right? So like I said, I have a bit of a background in writing. So he teaches all the basics in comics writing, like 3-act structure and characterization. He teaches classes that are really cool too, like about villains, like making a good villain. But the most important component, I think, and I think most of the students will tell you, is his number one priority, and he's huge on, is emotional storytelling, right? So what he teaches from the first like couple minutes is your plot doesn't matter. Map out your emotional arc, the emotional movement of all your characters, and then you can map a plot to that, whatever it needs to be. So convey the emotion to the reader, get everybody in your team to get on board with this. And that's the best possible thing you can do in storytelling. So with my background, I always thought like plot first, right? Your characters do A, B, and C all the way to Z. They go here, they get chased. This person, something happens. And then you would drop in like some pieces of character and some pieces of emotional storytelling. And I've completely flipped that as a writer because of what Scott's been telling us, right? So now, like for the story that I have in the anthology, I'm an editor on the anthology, but also I wrote a story for it. What I did was I started with writing the emotional component of it first when I was outlining. And then I took an idea for the plot and I mapped the plot to that first, right? Which I've never done before. And I think that's the most important part, the most important takeaway. I've never even like considered that was like something you could do. And I'll tell you like a quick story that he told in one of the classes. And I hope I don't mangle this, but one of the examples he gave was the movie Titanic, the James Cameron film. And he said like, here's the story, here's the emotional part, here's the plot where the boat hits an iceberg, it sinks, there's a chase, all this other stuff. You can take the emotional story of Jack and Rose, take them off the boat and put it anywhere else on land. Still a great story, right? It's a romance, a tragedy. It's like Romeo and Juliet. Doesn't matter that it happens on the Titanic, but when you map that emotional journey to the Titanic story, it enhances, it amps up all the emotional components to 100. And, when he talked about that, I was like, wow, that's like, he's right. That's really amazing. You know, like you can really do anything at that point once you understand the emotional journey of your characters, and you start with that first emotional journey first. So I think that's the biggest takeaway. You know, there's a lot of other amazing takeaways also. Like we had a whole class on pitching to publishers. Obviously, that was amazing. He had Will Dennis on there, who used to be a Vertigo pitcher. I'm sorry, a Vertigo editor. You know, he had a story on endings, story on how to open a story. He breaks down scripts. So we looked at Court of Owls. We've looked at like a million different scripts. So just an incredible value in the class, you know, considering like the cost.
Yeah, that's so true. Like what you're talking about, like the emotional arc of a character and how important that is. You know, like plot and theme and genre is important, and it'll get people to check out your stuff, right? Like I'm thinking of like the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. I don't know if you've seen it,
but I haven't. I want to so bad.
So I went to go see it because it's a multiverse sort of you know, movie, right? That's something I'm interested in. It's got martial arts and, you know, cool martial arts actors, and that doesn't matter. Like, you know, like that stuff is all cool, and that's why I went to go see it. But like the reason why I'm still thinking about it and the way it impacted me is like the emotional journey that these characters go on, and like it really like resonated with me. So, you know, those other things matter as far as like if you were trying to sell a project. Well, it sure helps if, you know, if it's something that people already like or are familiar with or can relate to, but nobody's going to care about it afterwards if it hasn't like impacted them like on an emotional level. And
the story won't stick in your mind for days afterwards or weeks afterwards unless it has that, exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Let's talk about Tales from the Cloak Room. Like I went on the Kickstarter. I was looking at the video there. Congrats, you guys are like almost funded in like a day, so that's great.
Thank you.
Can you tell me like what are these stories like? Because it didn't seem like they were kind of grouped together by like a theme. They're more just like these are a collection of short stories from students in this class, which is cool. But can you kind of tell me about like what some of the stories are?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So good observation. Thank you very much, you know, for pointing that out. We had an amazing first 24 hours, far beyond what we were expecting, you know, and let's keep it going. We had a couple of requirements for the anthology. So requirement number one was 6 pages or less. It had to be truly a short comic. And most of the comics are 6 pages. We have a couple that are less. They're like 4 pages. Very difficult, I think, to write a good story in 6 pages or less, right? You're only talking like 20 panels, 24 panels. It's like, man, like it's got to be real tight. The second thing was we had a kind of a thematic through line through all the stories. So the title of the book is Tales from the Cloak Room. Scott's label is Best Jacket Press. So we wanted to have each story had to have like in some way either part of the plot or an Easter egg or something. It had to have a jacket in it, right? It didn't have to be the primary plot driver, but that was like kind of like a thematic, like a through line. So that's one of the things that connects all the stories. And the other thing was what I was mentioning earlier. You know, the thing that Scott is teaching is the emotional journey. So each story had to be a complete story, and it had to have an emotional arc over 6 pages or less. That was the most important thing. You know, we have an editorial team, there's 4 of us, and we wanted to make sure that since we were using Scott's name, his name is on the book, that it was basically like pro publication quality. So it couldn't just be, you know, it couldn't be like bad artwork, bad storytelling. So, you know, all of the stories are like very high quality, emotional journey. You know, we're trying to like demonstrate exactly what Scott's teaching in the class. So yeah, that's basically it. I've read a lot of indie anthologies over the last couple of years. You know, I back a lot of Kickstarter projects. I know I'm biased. I'm an editor on the book, but I really think it's like one of the best anthologies out there. You know, as far as the quality of the story, quality of the artwork, it's like really up there.
And what is your story on in the anthology? Like, yeah, what is that one about?
Sure. Yeah. So my story is called The Cold Dark Secret of Titan Station. It's sci-fi horror. It's kind of a riff on John Carpenter's The Thing. If you remember that the classic sci-fi horror tale takes place at the South Pole at a research station. There's a group of researchers. People start disappearing. There's a couple who are the main characters, and some things happen to them. And there's like a little twist at the end of the story. So that's basically it. I've never written horror before. This is my first time. Really enjoyed it. And also, this was the first time I wrote the story starting from the emotional journey of the couple. And then I kind of like added the plot later.
Okay, well, I've included a link to Tales from the Cloak Room Kickstarter in the description of this video. So guys, click that link, go and check out this project, go and back this book. And I've also included a link to Scott Snyder's classes, so you can click that and maybe join that if that's something that interests you as well. Ben O'Grady, I want to thank you for being on Inside Comics.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's been great.
Awesome. And I'll catch you next time. Peace.
Bye.